Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast series. Here again, powered by openbusinesscouncil.org and citiesabc.com, and as well with fashionabc.org. The world is going through fantastic challenges and fantastic opportunities. And I think at the moment we are going through an interesting stage of history where actually all the innovation that we've been having with the so-called fourth industrial revolution is becoming increasingly more, I would say, advanced, and at the same time, there's a lot of retrocess from people perception and from what is happening effectively in front of us. And what this series are trying to do is demystifying global players, global personalities, especially the people that are making the action. Because in the end of the day, for one company to succeed on the scale of Google or Facebook or Amazon, there's a lot of other companies that are behind it and a lot of companies that create this. The same with banking, the same with finance, and especially all the areas of FinTech, blockchain, AI, and right now increasing metaverse technologies as a lot of things. There's a lot of hard work before the hype and before all the different things. And that's what we're trying to do here. And first, this is about people. It's people that do a lot of hard work, not just the ones that normally appear in the news. So that's why this podcast was created. So I welcome to our series Rajiv Sainani, responsible for the MakerDAO Europe Growth Lead, and Allan Pedersen, CEO of Monetalis. So I think it's going to be a great joint venture with two high-profile personalities. I will just highlight some of their profiles because both of them have fantastic profiles that I think are particularly important for what they're trying to do. So point one, Rajiv Sainani as a FinTech thought leader and leader, specializing in trading systems and digital strategies with more than 35 years experience in international markets. And of course, like I said, is right now leading Europe Growth Lead for the MakerDAO, and they're going to talk about that. I wanted to talk for some time. And unbiased global financial system that has a lot of innovation and a lot of things that can be taken to the financial industry. Rajiv is a bachelor in electrical and electronics engineer from the University of Bath here in the UK, and a master in control systems engineer from National Higher School of Toulouse in France. Rajiv has worked extensively with global players like JP Morgan, Refinitiv, Wirex, and Luno, with a track record of driving innovation, growth, and market share. And he is also a member of advisory of Wall Street Blockchain Alliance, with a focus on its international expansion. As a leader, he's focused on outstanding skills in data analytics, trading systems, RegTech, and digital strategy and digital payments. And Rajiv led Wirex Limited to be awarded the Best Pay Tech Partnership Award 2018 and in the FinTech Awards Power List 50. Then my second guest, Allan Pedersen, is a FinTech private equity investor, global business strategist and a serial entrepreneur who has been making significant impact in the FinTech and insurtech markets with his innovative and out-of-the-box approach. He is now the CEO of Monetalis Group, and Allan is a Master in Science of Economics and Finance from the Aarhus University in Denmark, where actually I work for a while, and an MBA from Harvard Business School. He holds certifications in emerging technologies like blockchain technology, cloud management, decentralized finance, and distributed technology from the likes of AWS, IBM, UCL, Duke University, INSEAD, and the University of Virginia. As a founder, he collaborated in the establishment of the equity EQ Group, Ursus Group, Zensurgio, and Triple P Capital. I think I tried to pronounce it the best possible, but we'll go through that today. And Allan has been the chairman and board of Contami Solutions, where he played a vital role in completing and integrating 3 FinTech acquisitions. He is also board member of IntelliCare, Asalus Corporation, and StoneStep AG. And he's advisor to Samsung Group, and this strategically led the financial service companies principally towards merging and acquisitions and joint ventures. So fantastic profiles. It's an honor to have you guys here. So I want to start by the basics. Okay, so both of you coming from 2 different sides of the barricade, one from Denmark, the other one from the UK. Both of you are global players with fantastic trajectories and track record. So let's start where all this started. It was in school, with your family, was with mentors or people that change your life, but where it starts your entrepreneurial and as well your business acumen and technology.
So I've sort of worked in global markets. I've actually spent a lot of my career working in Latin America. And I'd started in London, but I guess that something I'm really passionate about is emerging technologies and emerging markets, and I've sort of had the opportunity to combine both. But I guess where it all started was having the opportunity to go to France to study, and just realizing the world is far bigger than the UK, where I grew up, and just that opportunity to go and experience a new culture, learn a new language, see a different way of doing things, I guess created the bug within me to be a bit of an adventurer, both geographically, but also just with the tech. And I have spent most of my career in financial markets, done a lot of things across capital markets infrastructure. And it's also what attracted me to the blockchain space, because as I saw that developing, I just knew it was tech that would rewire everything, and it was a journey I wanted to be part of.
So I think I would say the two things that sort of sticks out for me over my long career has been an interest in entrepreneurial activity and in investing, and I think it all started in when I came out of university in Denmark, which is in the 90s. I got hired by a bank to help them really start an insurance company, and it was started as really a startup. So my first business was really setting up a startup, and I liked it so much that ever since I sort of been into the startup mode, and it was very much tech driven, and all the things I've done ever since has been very much tech driven. I think we were. I think I have about 4 or 5, or maybe 6 different startups in either Europe or in Asia behind me, and every time it's been in financial services, and every time the key driver, the key sort of reason for how we were able to do a business and make some changes and compete with big incumbents and do something new has been because there was a new tool, there was new technology that made it possible for you to put things together in a slightly different way that made sense, and actually, you move the industry forward. And that really is also what got me to blockchain, because of course I come very much from what they would call traditional finance, because I've been in private equity, I've been working with insurance companies, all these type of things. But here was finally a technology that I thought, there's something about it after studying quite a lot into it, and looking through all the nonsense that is also around it, to be frank. But that's how it is with a lot of new technology. Some people project it to become something very dramatic, that that may be too far. But there was certainly something about blockchain that I thought, here is something. And then I thought, adding my skills and experience from traditional finance, how do we make these things work together? I thought there was something there. So it's, for me, this getting into blockchain and working with MakerDAO is very much connected to 20 plus years of honestly trying to find out discontinuities in financial service industry and see where new technology can be fit in to make dramatic changes.
So you guys have fantastic CVs, and as well a huge success track record that probably overwhelms most of our audience. But one of the things that is clear is that you guys are leading 2 big corporations, but you work together. So let's look at, from the success of your careers, let's look at, probably, if you want to highlight each of you a bit of your career success, what would be the things that were more important from that success? Because I think that's one very important thing that I think they don't teach enough in business schools, and I've been teaching in business schools, is that this is all about collaborations, partnerships, and trial and error. But I think probably let's start with you, Allan, because you've been in some of the biggest corporations in the planet, and you, Rajiv. But let's start with you. Probably some of the track record. What would be the things that you're more proud, and as well, and we go, of course, to MakerDAO and all the things you're doing right now, but from the kind of career trajectory.
So I would say I've done some. So how should I put it? So a good number of those successes that we've had, business successes, have been built on collaborations. and a lot of them have been based on collaborations with very large financial companies. I did something in insurance with Swiss Re in China on telematics. That was to me was very exciting. And we've done the same with a big insurance company in Scandinavia. And I guess what we've found is that it's good to work with very big companies that aren't very good at, have trouble innovating because they're so good at many other things. Finding the right way to work with these giant financial service companies is usually or oftentimes a good path if you can make it work. Of course, they are elephants, so you need to take care that you don't get stamped under them. But if you find the right way, then there's a natural fit, right? You can provide innovation, you've got freedom to do things. On the other hand, they would like to see innovation, but they have a hard time building and doing these things inside. So I think there's a lot of that going on in particularly financial services. Some of it driven by the fit, but also it can be hard for you to build a lot of things from scratch as an entrepreneur in financial services. You have to remember a lot of the things that you want to do is actually regulated activity. So, you want to innovate in banking. Well, it's a little bit hard by starting to build your own bank, right? As, licenses, capital, and so on, similar with a lot of other things. So I have always found that in financial services, if you find the right partner to work with, that gives you a great stepping stone to do innovation.
Yeah, fantastic. And from your side, Rajiv, what would been and as well, you guys can highlight some of because you guys have so much fantastic thing. I summarized this, but one specific thing, because I think this is particularly interesting to look where you are right now and what made this success.
I mean, we talked a little about learnings, and I always think I've been very fortunate. I've sort of had the opportunity to work in TradFi with the biggest financial services firms, in what we call CFI, which are sort of in the blockchain space, which are sort of, I guess, more FinTechs who are looking to scale very fast and build solutions, which is a bit of a merge of crypto and sort of the Web2 infrastructure. And now more recently in the DeFi world, which is sort of pure on-chain crypto with the largest DAO that there is. And sort of my learning has sort of always been, well, I think the thing I've learned is, always be humble and sort of always seek that learning opportunity, because the reality is it doesn't matter how much experience you have in one area, it doesn't necessarily apply. And, even though I've come with more years than I care to admit to of experience in financial markets, when I've come into DeFi, guess what? It's a brand new world. And the reality is, yes, I have experiences to contribute to the DeFi ecosystem, but I'm also learning so much from young people straight out of college who are coding, because guess what? They're looking at the world in a different way. And it's so, yeah, I'm a big believer in just leverage, in sort of always taking the learning opportunity. And I actually think the opportunity is in putting those two together, like bring some experience structuring to all the innovation that there is from these young people, working in the DeFi industry, and that's what's going to create the magic.
I completely subscribe to that. So, Allan, from your trajectory, and I think if you want to highlight the company you have now, what you guys are doing, let's start with that. And I think both of you, if you could highlight what you're doing, and I want to talk about some ideas. But first, let's talk about what you guys are doing, because it's quite impressive. First of all, with the DAO, which is MakerDAO, which is, of course, one of the biggest platforms. And just defining a DAO is quite complex, but let's start by that. And as well, I think in your case as well, Allan, you have so much different hats right now, but as well as CEO of Monetalis.
It's not a company, and it's really interesting in this new world, as well as all the technical innovation with what's happening with blockchain tech. There's also the governance innovation, and a DAO is governance innovation, and we're very early in this journey. So a DAO is, it's a community who have come together to manage a protocol. So Maker protocol is deployed on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's managed by the community MakerDAO. And you have various contributors to that community that are distributed across core units. And so it's a completely new model of governance that comes with a lot of learnings, and we're very early in this journey, but it's a huge trend. We're sort of seeing this a lot in tech companies and in the blockchain space. And
so
sorry,
go ahead.
No,
continue.
I mean, I was sort of going to end it there, but to say in order to succeed in some of the big projects we're doing as a DAO, you clearly need to work with the right partners. And the right partners are those that can help bridge this blockchain native crypto space with traditional markets. And that's exactly where Allan comes in. So maybe I'll let him talk a little bit about how he's doing that.
Yeah, of course. So as Rajiv said, it's a new form of governance DAO, and that has its own challenges and benefits to it. What we're trying to do with Monetalis is to try and work on integrating the two worlds, the world of DeFi and the world of traditional finance, because at some point we believe they should really not be separate, right? We have to believe. I'm just going to close the door. We believe fundamentally that the financial markets should, be integrated. There shouldn't be two separate parts in the end, right? And at some point, the blockchain technology should be, the underlying platform for a large scale or for a large amount of the financial transactions that happens in the world, if the technology is to have true value. So we want to start that journey of integrating the two pieces. And we found working with MakerDAO to be one of the, a great partner to do this with, because there were already aspirations for how to connect the two worlds when we started working with them a year ago, and there was quite clarity on how they wanted to do it. So what we're doing is trying to set up the legal, technical, and financial strategies behind how can assets in traditional finance help underpin the stability and growth of the DAI currency, very, very simply. And we're now starting with some of these projects. It's taken some time to come to fruition, because there's a lot of dimensions to this. As I said, one part is how does a DAO act in the real world, where it doesn't have a legal identity. How do you find an appropriate compromise for some of these rights to move between the two worlds? And how do you find what is the right types of assets to underpin a currency such as DAI? So all these, and that sort of relates back to the DAO, because this past year has been a lot of work in terms of the community and us and the CUs in terms of communicating and debating all these parts to come up with, okay, this is the right legal solution, this is the right assets to put into, this is the right way of doing it, so on. And then right now we're executing it, but that's basically taken, I would say a year to come to fruition. But it's necessary. These are necessary rails you put down, because now we have something that means, okay, now we can deploy more, now we can do more, now we can work with other partners. I think you will, if you speak to Rajiv, you will also, you can confirm that many more traditional finance parties are starting to be interested in working in this integrative space between DeFi and TradFi, because we're starting to show proof of this actually being doable and workable. So yeah, that's what we work. We hope to expand it much more, but this is the first start, by deploying into US Treasury ETFs. But this is we think there's much more to integrate the two parts. I think there's so many benefits that will come over time as we find blockchain being used in tokenizing assets, and we find out that it's better to trade assets on the blockchain, clearing assets on the blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind we're in such early days, and as Allan was saying, like what we're doing is we're laying the rails and almost just proving the concept that you can bring the two worlds together. And actually, it's quite a simple use case, but the point is, it's working. We're scaling it right now, and we hope it inspires just many other similar experiments where you're looking to sort of blend together that best of TradFi with DeFi tech, and create innovative solutions.
So let me, just for the purpose of our audience, because what you guys are doing is amazing, but it needs to be contextualized. So Monetalis is a financing growth of the green economy that helps green growth wholesale lending to non-bank lenders, which is a big thing because for people listening to us, I think right now probably people are stuck in FTX and a lot of other things, but this is actually serious business. There's big corporations involved. Allan and Rajiv have fantastic CVs, as we mentioned. So Monetalis has been working on this part of financing SMEs transition to the green economy business in necessary cornerstones of realizing all the areas of sustainability around revolving credit facilities, block discount, and forward flow. Whereas the MakerDAO is a much more complex. So first of all, we discussed that in the series. What is a DAO? Decentralized autonomous organizations. The MakerDAO is probably the biggest in the world in terms of this area, and is doing a fantastic work at the moment. As we speak, there's a token that is still quite strong with a market cap of $73 million as we speak, and there's fully diluted market cap of 247 as we speak in CoinMarketCap. So I think it's important to contextualize this first, and we've been interviewing some of the top people in blockchain and crypto. But let's look right now. I think if Rajiv, if you could talk about how the DAO Maker works, because I think that's the magic of this, and some case studies. Because I always like to, a lot of the people in crypto go and they follow this kind of crazy influences that, okay, let's go and get a Ferrari and whatever the stuff, and they will make millions. And they forgot the really applications like what to do. And then, of course, the mainstream media gets into the stupidities that everything is stupid. And I think this is really what you guys are doing is fantastic, but it needs to be contextualized. And I think there's so much business opportunities if we put it context, because of course Allan as a CV, as VC, working with some of the biggest corporations, and you, Rajiv, as well. So how does it work to make a DAO? Let's look at some case studies, because I think I know that you're building it, but you have already something quite mature.
I mean, contextually, it's a very sort of core component of finance. It's a lending platform. It's an automated lending platform that's been built on the Ethereum blockchain. So it lives purely in smart contracts. Code is law. Everything's completely transparent. Life started very much focused within the crypto ecosystem. So if you think of the two sides of the ecosystem, a user can come in and it's completely permissionless. So a user can come in through the Ethereum wallet and lock up collateral in the protocol. And let's say Ethereum, for example, and against that collateral, they can mint DAI, which is a soft pegged stablecoin to the US dollar. When they want their collateral back, or when they want to release their collateral, they will pay back the DAI into the system with a stability fee. So it started with a very pure crypto focus and has since expanded to, and this was sort of that blend of, TradFi, DeFi, to include some use cases and examples of work in what we call the RWA space, so the real world asset space. And again, we're in very early days, so every experiment is a learning that we take lessons from, and we incorporate those into the next lessons. But I almost see sort of a few waves that we've gone through. In our first wave of experimentation, we worked with young, agile tech companies who are really looking to innovate. And, we For example, one is Centrifuge, who created DeFi pools, very focused in the trade finance sector, and tapped into Maker for access to DeFi funding. So already, just a use case where they are tapping into DeFi to finance real-world activities, and they've built all the infrastructure that allows for the technical integration for clients who actually, don't understand blockchain and don't need to, because they've abstracted that away from them. So we sort of had that as a first experiment, and from there took many learnings. And then we saw a wave with actually large regulated financial institutions, and we had one case in Europe and one case in the US where banks were actually looking to integrate with the DAO. And again, it's all public, as is everything with the DAO. Everything's completely open on our forum, and you can see all the details of these cases. But one was a large bank in Europe and another a bank in the US. And I guess almost also in recognition of the large sort of what's happening in the macro environment in this latest, and I almost call it a third wave, it's been much more about how do we best deploy the reserves of the DAO, and how do we ensure it's sort of the best yield and risk component that's going to best back a stable coin. And that's sort of the discussion that Allan actually brought to the community in terms of creating a structure that would allow the DAO to put reserves into the safest risk asset out there in US treasuries. But again, as a DAO, you need to have partners who are going to facilitate that process. And I think there will be a fourth wave of sort of innovation moving forward, and there are many sort of use cases that we're looking at. But the really interesting thing is just how many large financial institutions are now looking to start discussions with us in terms of, well, how could we work together? What use cases are there that we could further develop? So, and it's obviously not just us. Like, you're seeing this across the industry, and I'm sure the more good cases we see happening, the more we see them scaling in a stable way. The more this just grows and grows.
So let's look right now. So for people listening to us, because of course I know actually the first DAO, I remember the first DAO with that it was ACT and all these kind of things. There's a lot of things about the DAO history and the DAOs, but let's look at a comparison. I always like to make comparisons. Like, probably this is, the other day, a DAO is a technology-driven cooperative, let's put it that way, or we have different people trying to look at solutions and innovation around this. So for people, let's say, case studies, you mentioned a couple of case studies from banks and what you guys are doing in terms of the community. So how do you work with the community? And I think especially both of you guys as experts in finance, and of course, Allan, you are as well an investor, so you have multiple hats. How are you guys working with both your investors, with your community, and as well to build this, and as well, of course, in the industry? Because there's a lot of puzzles, and the DAO as well, for people listening to us, comprehends that there's a code governance. There's not a conventional governance of one person taking all. There's a very strong sense, which is not different from a cooperative, but here is done with technology. So I would like to make this parallel for demystifying, first of all, the ones that, okay, DAO is some science fiction. And I think you mentioned, of course, DeFi, decentralized finance, and there's a lot of different things around the innovation here. But normally there's I would say there's three kind of waves. One people is the people that go, okay, can I make a quick buck here? The other ones are the ones like you guys and me, that we're working on this technology to create innovation. And the third one is the solutions that come out of this that create entire ecosystems. So let's look at the ecosystem that you guys are creating.
So I think, firstly, if you want to work with a DAO, I think the first thing to understand is that there's no quick box involved, because this is quite a long process. The thing is, a DAO, as you can see, has sort of, or maybe it has two levels, if you like, of community. Well, one is the broad community, everybody who's interested and excited about it and posts on forum and follows everything that happens. And then you have those who makes the final executive decisions, which is those who hold the governance token, the Maker token. Now, those who hold the Maker token, a lot of them will also be involved in the community. So, and then on top of that, you have a very specific, detailed governance process that says you must put a proposal in this format, you must wait so and so long, you must have so and so many votes, and so on and so forth. So when you start getting into or working with a DAO, the first step is realizing that there are a good number of stakeholders involved that you're going to have to engage with and come to productive compromises with. So it's a lengthy process, and it involves many different views. And hopefully, as a result of that, the ultimate proposal or whatever is decided upon, it is better for it, right? Because it's been test proven so many different places. So the first step we did was try and become engaged. First step is just, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on in the DAO. You can find it usually in a forum. You start reading it, you start putting posts in, you start expressing an opinion and start trying to add value. And then at some point you put out a proposal, and then you start working with the community members. A lot of this, you have to remember, is transparent. Everything is very transparent. You're doing your best to make sure that everybody knows what you're doing, because that's sort of a core tenet of this. I mean, this is one of the key pieces why a DAO is a very, I think it has great potential because everything is so transparent. And I think that transparency is really strong in the financial services. It helps you a lot. It's very hard to hide anything. It's very hard to do anything bad because everything is so transparent. And I think that's a great thing that the DAO brings to it. The other thing that I find the DAO brings to it is actually that particular decision-making process. Whilst it is somewhat frustrating, and it would be easier if I could just call, the head of the bank and discuss this and this, it does, I think in the end bring to a better result in the end, and it fits very well with the stability of financial services. You actually don't want, I believe, financial services businesses to make very rapid and quick decisions on material things. I think the fact that these large governance issues or large decisions like that has a very strong, transparent decision-making process, and I think that's what the DAO brings to it. So working with it means a lot of posting on the forum, following the governance process, trying to show that you add value to the DAO by being involved in whatever is up in the DAO at this particular point in time, having whatever you can have of ask me anything. I mean, it's you get as much out as you give in, right? In that sense, as in, if you're adding to the community, you're doing things, there's a good chance that they will start trusting you. There's a good chance that there will be that trust that leads to positive decisions in the other end, and that you're able to find solutions or proposals that will fit with the overall community. So yeah, it's long processes, and you got to feel comfortable with this extreme transparency, and you got to be willing to handle that there are always pros and cons, as in there's always people who really like it, and there are always people who really don't like it, and you're just trying to find a appropriate compromise that the majority will feel okay with in the other end.
It's amazing, and I think I appreciate the level of detail you went. So one of the things that just happened, that is, congratulations first of all, is that you guys partnership with the Coinbase, of course, the biggest regulated platform in the world, and probably the only one at this scale, that is really working with you guys to create that the DAO Maker goes live on Coinbase Custody. So let's talk about that, because that's a big thing, and of course just being listed there makes the token go, and especially we're not in normal days for crypto. 2022 has been a kind of a crypto winter on steroids. But I think it's normal in these crypto winters, which is not different from the internet boom doom days of the 2000s. And I think right now, of course, during this time is when the big players will come, and I believe that you are one of them. So let's talk about this partnership in specifically and how this works.
I mean, the good thing about the DAO is it's completely decentralized, so anyone can come to the forum and post what we call an improvement proposal, and actually are encouraged to do so. You know, and that can be from small individuals to large institutions such as the Coinbases of the world, who have come with a proposal for Coinbase custody. So the way that the governance process works is it will first go through a green light process where the Maker token holders will vote if this is something that they want to explore. And as you mentioned, this was successfully ratified. So where we are now is the internal teams, because there's always a level of further detail and due diligence that needs to occur. And so the internal relevant teams will then take that proposal and go away and start conducting technical, legal, risk due diligences and assessments, and they will post that back to the forum so that the token holders can effectively assess and take a final decision. So we're in the middle of that process. And you know, with this proposal and various others, and as I mentioned, it's sort of really encouraging just to see the level, or I'd say the evolution of the sort of proposals that we're getting in the forum. It's sort of, you know, you really do see some big names, regulated names, but you also see the really young companies, you know, looking to do really innovative stuff. So, you know, from crypto companies looking to add new collateral into Maker to, as you mentioned, somebody like a Coinbase who has a proposal to do for custody. So yeah, and then the Maker token holders, through a very open, transparent, on-chain voting system, will ultimately take the decisions.
So how do you look at all the different things? So especially you talk about the governance, okay, and managing a governance even in the startup is extremely difficult. So how do you do that part with what you guys are doing, especially in terms of something as ambitious and as complex technological-wise? Because for people listening to us, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization that looks at the solutions of the community and evolves in the product and different part, everything built by the community, which is a quite complex part. And in the end of the day, we're talking about governance for community and leadership, and governance for technology and financial products. So how do you guys make the balance of that, and how does it work? Because I know that is not a simple thing.
Yeah, it's tough, and bear in mind, you know, we're sort of trailblazing a path in terms of DAO governance. So and you know, I guess like any fintech that's fast growing, you hit scaling issues, and certainly I think that's what we've started to see. There's so much activity. It's how do you ensure that you're being productive and efficient about being able to address it all. So there are reviews underway in terms of a new model or new evolution in terms of the DAO structure that will help us scale better. But you know, to your point, I think this is just, you know, with any fast scaling startup, and I've worked in a few and they've not been DeFi, you know, you see the same sort of challenges. It's like, as you're looking to grow so quickly, how do you almost keep up with the resource to just manage that effectively and securely? So it's also a learning we're going through.
Okay, so I think let me touch. I know that there's a lot of news about you guys. There's quite complex stuff going on. So how do you keep this trajectory of innovation, sustainability, and as well governance around the community? And I think especially probably for you, Allan, because you have quite big brands and big corporations that you've been working with. How you take that part, looking at Rajiv part on the MakerDAO with your experience as well on the corporate side?
I guess so from our experience, the hardest part in this journey of connecting, let's call it a DeFi landscape with a traditional finance landscape, has very much been the equal distrust on both sides. As in, frankly, the DeFi side is less trusting of the traditional finance than you might think is reasonable, and similar on the other side, the traditional finance is a lot more mistrusting of the DeFi side that you might think is warranted. So it's been bridging that trust in both cases, as in acting as that that company or that person or that structure in between to try and gain trust with the DeFi world, in this case MakerDAO community. Say, well, we're going to treat you correctly. We're going to treat things as it should be done. We're not trying to take anybody's money or any of that. And on the other side, working with them with the traditional finance institutions, I mean both large and small, to explain, well, actually what they're doing at MakerDAO, there's nothing strange going on. It's quite a reasonable product. They're reasonable people. It's extremely transparent. You can see exactly what's going on. All the financials are there. Everything is there. You can see the projections. You can see all the trajectory of where it's moving. And this is how we then want to integrate the two. So overcoming that, let's call it distrust, which somewhat, that distrust is actually somewhat based upon, I think, almost different languages. I mean, the way you speak in the crypto world is very different from how you speak in the traditional finance world. So bridging that gap has helped a lot, and that's what we've spent a lot of time on to get that common trust between the two worlds. And I, as I said, I think after more than a year working on this, that is starting to appear. But that's a necessary part. I mean, it doesn't help all the things that we've recently heard, of course, all the blowups in the industry, and every single time that happens, we need to go back and calm down the traditional finance world or the partners. They're saying, well, actually, look, what happened here is exactly the same as you've seen for the past 200 years of financial services. The things that are being done here has nothing to do with crypto, but just bad business practices in financial services that you've seen a trillion times before, and helping them understand that those we are working with here, in this case MakerDAO, continues to be of excellent quality and secure, and so on. But yeah, that is the biggest trick to make sure that the trust exists to start building these bridges. And now that we've built one bridge, we can build one more bridge, and so on. Yeah, I would say that's the biggest challenge.
So the industry is going through, like you said, this is nothing new. And I think if you look at the history of finance, it's not just 200 years, probably thousands of years. But the challenge is that in history, we always had centralized organizations and decentralized organizations. I mentioned the cooperatives. We can talk about even the Mohican Indians, which I think there's a fantastic book about that explains centralized versus decentralized organizations, Wikipedia versus Amazon and so forth. But I think the difference to what you guys are doing is that this is done with technology. And of course, the DAO at a certain point was one of the biggest tokens in the world. It's still one of the biggest tokens in the world. So there's been a lot of shift right now. And as well, there's right now one of your founders that is coming as well with a new proposal. So there's a lot of stuff that is on the table right now. And I think the biggest challenge is definitely, I believe from my experience as well, that really decentralized systems are always difficult unless the governance is really, really very well done. But in the end of the day, at least my experience, and that probably is right now a question for you guys, is what saves any project is the utility of the project. Okay, whatever it is, if the project creates utility, or at least there's some kind of technological innovation, that's partly why Bitcoin is still Bitcoin and Ethereum keeps moving and so forth. So from a utility perspective, what you guys are trying to do is creating financial alternative solutions, which in one end reflects a lot of the kind of the cooperatives of the 60s and 70s. And if you go 200 years back, a lot of models of cities and ecosystems around the cities and the guilds of the cities. I know that Denmark in particular has a huge history of this, and there's still a lot of organizations on that. But how can we take this and as well, in one end, reinforce the paper of the innovation and technology without letting the train go off the track? Because that's the problem right now, is that at the moment we are in a crossroad for the blockchain industry, because in one end there's fantastic utility coming from the blockchain industry, but the crypto, as we know it, has to go through a lot of steps. And I think probably the biggest question, and I'm asking both of you guys right now, is are we going to create this trust within the crypto that people can understand, okay, this is really about innovation, not about the fireworks or the speculation and all the issues that we have in any industry and any companies.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain degree that there are some benefits of having a financial winter as both crypto and the traditional finance has right now, because instead of working with or looking at all the speculative and all the big hand waving stuff that's been out there, the discussion points you have with traditional finance becomes much more economics driven, as in, okay, when you are using this technology or this solution, is it bringing efficiencies? Is it bringing speed? Is it bringing better cost? What are you bringing to the table? It becomes a much more long-term productive discussion. Whereas before it was more, we can do this and then valuations go like this. That really is not so much the question. It becomes very much, how can you in your core product show that you're creating improvement to the financial system? And tying the debate between traditional finance and crypto and DeFi there, I think is a good place, because that's the way, if you do proper economics, economics-based improvements, well, then you have a good chance of winning over the entire financial system in a period of time. So I think right now, despite it is we're in deep frost in terms of economic development and so on, and inflation and all sorts of things right now. I think actually from where we are looking and for where somebody like Maker might be looking, because we've always tried to tie it down to very financially focused efficiency improvements in the system. I think that's a good place to start from. This is a good place to build out all these bridges we discussed before. I think that's so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add my perspective, what always attracted me to the industry and sort of is, the fact that I genuinely believe the underlying technology is going to bring more efficiency to financial markets. And so now the technology is very powerful. So you can have good use cases built on top of it, and you can have bad use cases. And I think sort of we're going through an unfortunate moment where there has been, maybe it's irresponsible behavior, and maybe that's sort of getting mingled up and sort of confused with the underlying tech. So sort of there is, a bit of a black spot around all of crypto. But I think, what's really interesting is the builders keep building through this time, and it's not just sort of the crypto native protocols who keep building. You're actually seeing more and more regular institutions who are starting to experiment, starting to build their own internal education, and I think ultimately that's what's going to win, right? It's the efficiency of this technology applied not just to financial markets, but there are other use cases out there as well. So we're probably going to see some changes around regulatory as well, but that's part of the evolution. So it's just that, yeah. I mean, I'm still really excited about the opportunity, and I think the fact that the builders just keep building, I think, is proof of the long-term trend. It's just up. And yes, we're in a very unfortunate moment because we're all seeing, what were supposedly very trusted parties who have, I don't know, made basic mistakes.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, and we can go for hours here. So probably my last question, and I think this is one of the discussions I see in the community, in the MakersDAO community. There's a couple of articles. There's a lot of things that's probably from the, I think right now, probably the biggest question is right now, what is going to happen with the industry? And like you said, from the regulatory to innovation, I believe that is about utility in the end of the day. If you create real utility, you're going to get it. But I think one of the biggest discussions that I saw within your community and preparing for the interview is definitely how you keep the majority of the DAO makers active community engaged, and as well how you can actually vote to take things forward. So you guys are part of the organization and the leadership of the organization, although it's decentralized. How do you see that, and how can we actually make that being an example for the industry at large?
So I think so. How do you keep the community engaged? I think is rooted in so two things, as in that you continue to this extreme transparency that is there, and continue to consult the community on all the decisions and all the things that are happening right now, and all the proposals that are coming up, all the changes that are coming up. It's as long as the community continues to get consulted and continues to be heard, I think there'll always be there'll be a strong community, because you want to be a place where you can make an impact and get heard. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the fact that Maker continues its path, of actually being its goal of being a permissionless currency. I think there's a lot of support around the long-term goal of that and the long-term prospects of that. So that helps keeping the community engaged. So I think, yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that they've already figured out, or Makers already figured out, just continue along the way of that is a strong way of keeping the community continually engaged. It's yeah. I think that would be my key.
Yeah,
the key pieces.
I mean, we're clearly going to see an evolution of the model as we go through end of this year, beginning of next year. It's going to be a learning experience and I guess fine-tuned, but sort of what, the objectives that we hope to see come out of it are perhaps more focused and faster decision-making on the one hand, and on the other, you talked about engagement. I mean, I think, there'd be various incentive models to drive more engagement and token holders in that decision-making process, because the ideology of decentralized decision-making is huge. And as always, we're going to innovate, learn, course correct, and try to make the ecosystem continuously better.
No, fantastic. So I have more questions, but I'm cautious about your time. So I think I will let the community as well ask some questions. I know that what you guys are doing is very important for the future of finance and the future of technology. I wish the best success. I wish as well the community that works together, because that's the idea of decentralization. Thank you for your time. There's much more questions. Probably do a second round. I know that you guys have to go as well. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dinis. Take care.
Thank you.